Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers have won 2 of the first 3 in this 4-game series against the Padres. A lot of good to talk about, a little bit of bad, unfortunately. That one game they lost got pretty darn ugly, but we'll talk about the starting pitching doing really well with some caveats, bullpen imploding in game 2, and the offense continuing to do its thing. That's what's on tap, so let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And it was an exciting weekend, Vince. The Dodgers, if going into the series, we know the Padres are a better team than the way they've played this year. And Yu Darvish and Blake Snell are both very, very good pitchers. So going into the series, knowing in those first 3 games, Dodgers are facing Darvish and Snell and Rich Hill. I think if you told us Thursday night, by the time you record a podcast Sunday night, the Dodgers will be 2-1 in the series, I think we would have taken it for the most part, winning 2 out of those 3 games. I think the Rich Hill game is a game everybody would have expected us to win, and sure enough, the Dodgers did. And then you try to steal one of those other ones. The only reason there's a little bit of a sour note is the Dodgers had a really good chance to steal both of those first 2 and win the first 3 games of the series. But we'll get to that in the second segment, the bullpen not allowing that to happen. But I guess jumping in, Vince, we thought we'd talk about the starting pitching, the bullpen, and then the offense, the 3 elements of the team, because there's a lot to say about all of them. And the starting pitching in this series, other than, they haven't given much length. Other than that, the starting pitching has been very good. Lance Lynn made up for it, did give some length. And, Saturday's lack of length was probably more due to health than anything else, although we weren't really sure what was going to happen. So I guess let's start with Bobby Miller in Friday's game. Only made it 3 2/3 innings. Seemed like he was running out of gas. His pitch count was getting up there. Wasn't necessarily at a point where they had to pull him, but he was about to face the order for the 3rd time, had runners on base, and was really, really starting to struggle.
It was one of those where they kind of didn't want to play with fire. He pitched well. I saw a tweet about his stuff plus was top 5, I think, in 5 different pitch categories on that day or this weekend, whatever it was. So his stuff was there. His stuff was good. He just the at-bats weren't starting until there was a full count. That's what it seemed like. Every at-bat, somebody had a full count, and sometimes you struck him out, sometimes you got him out, and sometimes he didn't. So it comes down to attacking maybe a little bit. I don't know if it was so much command, more so just him maybe trying to live on the margins a little bit and worried about getting hit. And the other part was they talked about a lot on the broadcast Friday of this team being the Padres not being great against velocity. And I feel like a couple of times he went to off speed when he could have just stuck with velocity and it might have worked out a little bit better. But again, the stuff is good. He's right on the cusp of figuring it out. He just needs to put it together. He hasn't put it all together in a start yet. He's had good starts, but he hasn't, the stuff's right there.
Yeah, overall, he threw 49 strikes and 33 balls, which is not quite the ratio you're looking for. It's not the worst we've seen, but it's not what you're looking for. And the fact that he did throw those 82 pitches in just 3 2/3 innings tells you everything you need to know about how efficient he was. And, it's a recurring theme with almost every young pitcher. Efficiency is the big thing. And he talked after the game about how he needs to be better at attacking hitters. And, when you have that good of stuff, go after him. And maybe, I don't know if he was intimidated by, the big names in the Padres lineup and they're very good hitters or what it was. But quality was good. Quantity was not good enough because whether the efficiency wasn't quite there. which then brings us to Saturday. Michael Grove got the start. We weren't sure. We knew that Grove and Yarbrough were both likely to pitch. We weren't sure what order they would go in. And then they announced that Grove was going to be the starter. And we thought, oh, maybe they're just doing an opener because they had previously announced that Grove wouldn't make his start this time through the rotation. And then Dave Roberts said it was going to be a traditional start, that Grove was going to be out there like a regular starter. And then Grove looked awesome. And then he was out in the second inning. And it turns out that on Sunday he was placed on the injured list with a lat strain, I think it was. And so, there's Ryan Yarbrough did come in and it ended up being basically kind of like a glorified opener, opener going a little bit deeper than most openers, and then Yarbrough taking the bulk innings. But unfortunately, they between those two guys, they weren't able to take down quite as many innings as it ended up the Dodgers needed. But I guess we could talk about Grove and Yarbrough both as starters, since that's kind of both their role. And Grove looked great. He struck out 4 out of the 5 outs that he got were strikeouts.
Yeah, he looked great. It was interesting because when they pulled him out, it didn't seem like he was in. It seemed like Dave Roberts said it was going to be a traditional start, and it wasn't supposed to be a traditional start. It was one of those, okay, you get him past the righties at the top of the lineup, and then let Yarbrough have a soft spot to start his outing, and then he'll go the bulk of the way. It worked out that way. I don't know if it was because of the injury or not. Nothing that we saw, or at least that I remember seeing. But yeah, I mean, Grove looked good. He's kind of been a little Jekyll and Hyde lately. He's looked good, and had a couple bad games. He's had the swing and miss, which is the good part. So when he does come back from the injured list, I'd love to see him in the bullpen role for sure, because Dodgers, Yarbrough could be, I don't know what their plan was for him or what the plan is for him still moving forward. But I'd like to just see him as a regular starter and at least a couple of times through and see what he does. But yeah, I mean, it's more guys than they've had before. And with Clayton Kershaw coming back, we'll probably have a discussion about that too and what happens to the rest of the rotation.
Yeah, and maybe this is the time to have that discussion, because they did announce on Sunday that Kershaw is likely to come back this week. They're not sure if he'll come back in the 2-game series with the D-backs or when the Dodgers get back home. But at that point, somebody else probably loses a spot in the rotation, and it's either Ryan Yarbrough or it's Tony Gonsolin at this point. And yeah, I mean, you just said you'd like to see Yarbrough get a couple starts, and that would leave Gonsolin as the odd man out in this rotation, probably maybe a piggyback situation with Bobby Miller. Remember last season started with Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson piggybacking and ended with both of them. Were they both all-stars? They were both all-star quality anyway.
Yeah, they both were all-stars.
And so maybe that's all they need. Bobby Miller and Tony Gonsolin just need to piggyback for a minute. But it seems like maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, I think, barring some wild 6+ inning start from Gonsolin on Monday, I think you kind of have to see, okay, is it an issue of him starting and getting length and him having to try to conserve himself because he knows he has to start? Or is it a matter of if his stuff or his body, whatever it is diminished? Because if they can say, okay, Gonsolin, we only need you to throw 2 innings, whether it's the beginning of the game or after, after Bobby Miller or whatever the case, I'd like to see it. And I'd like to see if it's the stuff that's bad or if it's just him not being able to be a starter right now. Because every time they talk about it, it's, if we weren't so injured, he'd be on the injured list, or if you're blah, 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 all this other stuff. So I'd like to see if that's truly the case. And if it is, maybe he does go on the injured list, and maybe they, that'd be a kind of a big roll of the dice just because you're hoping that nobody else gets hurt. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the argument, I guess, in favor of keeping Gonsolin in and making Yarbrough the piggyback starter for Miller is the disparity in pitching styles. A hard throwing righty and a soft tossing lefty maybe could throw guys off. Maybe he'd be more effective in that role following Miller in a game. I don't know how much truth there is to that idea, but I guess that would be the argument in favor of Yarbrough being the one to become the piggybacker. There's one more starter for us to talk about. We'll let that bleed into the second segment. We're going to talk about that last starter and then talk about the bullpen and their performance this weekend. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Dave. not the person, the app. At one time or another, we all need a little financial help. That's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need a hand between paychecks and can help you build credit by settling extra cash advances on time. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. So download Dave today at dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. You could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. We are back. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers who are here with us every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, it's a fun club to join. All you got to do is watch or listen every weekday morning. Also, I remind you, you can catch every Dodger game on the radio on Sirius XM or the SXM app. You can just launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And finally, we want to remind you, if you are watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear from you in the YouTube comment section. And if you're listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email or any other contact info we will give you at the end of the episode. So one last starter we need to talk about, Vince, even if just to make sure that we give him his props. Lance Lynn pitched on Sunday and continued his streak of only allowing runs on solo homers. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings and I threw 94 pitches. I mean, it was crazy. After the lack of getting a total of 5 innings from their first 2 starters in the series, I think Lynn could have gone 7 innings if they had needed him to, and they didn't, and I was a little surprised they didn't push him to 7, but at 94 pitches, they took him out. He did great, got the win. He's, as a Dodger now. And Lance Lynn is, we knew that he was going to provide innings, be an innings eater. I feel like the quality has probably been better than people had hoped for.
Yeah, definitely been better than that hoped for. The first one, you could have chalked it up to, okay, it was the A's, but, this is the Padres, and this is a potential team they might play in the playoffs, and he shut them down for the most part over 6 innings. And yeah, it would look good. You look at what he's done different since being with the Dodgers. The last game, he threw almost 70% fastballs. This game, he was right around somewhere up there again, throwing mostly fastballs. And he's throwing the fastballs up. That changeup was working down and out to lefties or down and into righties. And he looked good. He got some swings and misses. He struck out Machado twice. He ended up with 6 strikeouts. So whatever it is, if it's just as simple as changing the way, how many times he throws certain pitches and everything like that. And if the command and control is there, then he's going to be solid for the rest of the way.
Yeah, no complaints there for sure. One area we do have some complaints about is the Dodgers bullpen this weekend, and not entirely. I mean, like we talked about, the starters didn't go very deep, and so the bullpen did get worked pretty hard. Really, it was 2 guys. On Saturday, Yency, Almonte, and Caleb Ferguson both just kind of found a dumpster, threw some gas in, and tossed in a match. Almonte struggled to throw strikes. He was in trouble, but he walked Ha-Seong Kim and then he walked Fernando Tatis on 4 pitches. And like, I get it. And it's been a running issue with Almonte. I think that sometimes he's not sure where his stuff is going to go. They talked last year when he was having an excellent season. They talked about how his strategy was just aim for down the middle and know that your slider is going to move one way and your fastball is going to move the other way. But just don't try to place them. Just aim down the middle and let your stuff work. That doesn't seem to be working. Almonte, after he had been solid, he hadn't allowed an earned run in, I don't know how many games it was, from June 14th through July 25th. That's for him, 15 appearances, 14 2/3 innings, hadn't allowed an earned run. But now in his last 3 games, he has allowed the 2 games against real teams. Both of those games, he's allowed 3 earned runs in 1/3 of an inning. He did have 2 shutout innings, scoreless innings against the A's. He did walk 2 guys and allow a hit there, but he didn't allow any runs. But the game against the Reds and the game against the Padres, both times 3 runs in a third of an inning. Both times walks were an issue. Against the Reds, it was 3 walks in that third of an inning. Against the Padres, it was 2 walks and a hit. It's very concerning that Almonte struggles against good teams. Suddenly.
And I think, kind of the discussion I saw on social media and kind of the discussion, that's part of it is the Dodgers don't really they're trying to find that second guy behind Evan Phillips. And, Ferguson, for the most part, has been pretty good over a year, but he's hit a couple of spots where, and it's hard to be, Evan Phillips, unless you really, really pay attention, you probably don't even remember the couple of games where he's had mistakes because it's so far and few between or it's not as bad as some other guys when they implode. When Almonte implodes, you remember because he walks 2 or 3 guys and then maybe gives up a hit or a home run or whatever. Ferguson as well. When they brought in Ferguson, my first thing was, why are they bringing in Ferguson with the bases loaded? Because he's a guy that struggles with command sometimes. And then when I thought about it, I'm like, well, I guess it's between him and Vesia because it's a lefty at the plate. So there wasn't too much to go with in that specific spot. And it does come down to if Bobby Miller had gone deeper in the game on Friday, then they wouldn't have to use so many arms, and there probably would have been more arms available Saturday. And I think the one thing is that we can speak on that is tough is speaking in absolutes. People are like, oh, Ryan Brazier should have came in or somebody should have came in. It's we don't know if he was available because he pitched on Friday. We don't know what the deal is. And then he ended up actually giving up a home run on Sunday. So if he had come in and given up a home run instead of, I guess it wouldn't have mattered because they scored so many runs that inning on Saturday anyways. But yeah, it's tough. And I think we're going to have nights like this where it's tough because they're trying to figure out this bullpen. And we're in that mode now where they're still trying to win games, but they're also trying to figure out this October situation. And there's still a lot of time to figure out the bullpen because guys will move. Guys could come up. There's still more movement to be made. But I think overall, the talent is kind of there, but the execution's not.
Yeah, it's easy to second guess every decision that doesn't work out. But the fact is, Almonte and Ferguson are both important parts of this. And Ferguson, he did come in with the bases loaded, and he got weak contact. That was some bad luck. You could tell that Ferguson was the plan against Soto, and like you said, the alternative was Alex Vesia, and he got a weak grounder. And the funny thing is, if the infield had been playing in to prevent that run, the problem was they had a 2-run lead, so they were playing double play depth. If the infield's playing in, they get a force at home on that play instead of 2 runs scoring on it. And the error by Kike didn't help any. Ferguson later had an error on his own. Inning should have been over, and he had Machado picked off and ended up throwing the ball away. That led to another, at least 1 more run, maybe 2 more runs. It was just an ugly, stupid inning. But the fact is, Dave Roberts said after the game, I got to put guys in situations and give them a chance to earn a spot or cost themselves a spot. And we're kind of getting to that point in the season. You remember last year, Craig Kimbrell actually was pitching a little bit better as the season went on, but he had 1 or 2 high profile mess ups late in the season, kind of at this point, we're in September, where at that point you're like, well, even though he was probably better overall the last month and a half of the season than he had been the first part of the season, it was in crunch time. And it's at the point where you're like, okay, there's no more time to give him a chance. And, Almonte,
let it go stretch.
Yeah. And Almonte and Ferguson both are kind of, they're going to have to step up. And I did like that Roberts went right back to Almonte, even though Almonte threw, how many pitches did he throw in that inning only 16 pitches. He was terrible, but didn't throw a ton of pitches. So that allowed Dave Roberts to bring him back in on Sunday, bigger lead. And he did pretty well. He gave up a hit, but didn't allow any runs. And that you appreciate that as a pitcher, probably your manager's throwing you right back out there, give you a chance to redeem yourself. And it was good that the Dodgers had a big enough lead that they trusted him with that. But yeah, when you talk about having that second guy, Brusdar Graterol at times has been that guy. ERA wise looks like that guy. Joe Kelly stuff wise looks like that guy. They've got possibilities. And the crazy thing is, when we get to the postseason, any or all of these guys could get on hot streaks. It's not crazy at all. We've seen it firsthand. Joe Kelly being dominant in October. We saw it against the Dodgers in 2018. We've also seen the other side of Joe Kelly in October. But all of these guys have the potential to be really, really good. But you'd love to see them get there before October, because that's going to be nerve-wracking if we go into it with a lot of bullpen question marks in the postseason.
Yeah, and I know we say this a lot, but like I said, for us to feel better, we want to see these guys get right and go in strong into October. But at the end of the day, they could go in hot, they could go in cold, they could go in whatever, and it just matters what they do in October at that point, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yep. And I guess the one other thing on the bullpen to talk about was Evan Phillips pitching on Friday. He came into the game in the 8th inning. Dodgers were up by 3 runs, 2 runners on, and Fernando Tatis at the plate. And did I break up, or can you still hear me okay?
You're breaking up, but I can still hear you.
Okay. But yeah, so 2 runners on, up by 3, Tatis coming up. So they brought in Evan Phillips. He gets a fly out to get out of that. And then the Dodgers score three more runs. And a lot of people are saying that the Dodgers should have pulled Phillips at that point once they had a 6-run lead. But, and then he would have been available on Saturday. But the fact is, Phillips is already in the game. You can't take anything for granted. Yeah, get the win. Step on their necks right now. Worry about tomorrow. And Phillips wouldn't have been pitching in the 8th inning anyway. It would have been Almonte. It's the 8-9-1 hitters. You're not going to bring in Phillips in the 8th inning against the bottom of the order. Almonte lit a fire. If anything, the difference is if Phillips is available, maybe you go to him instead of Ferguson. And then maybe you could go after the walk to Kim. But even that, it's it's so easy to second guess these things, but when you have a win in front of you, you'd hate to, pull Phillips out, bring in a lesser reliever, and then have the Padres rally. And then suddenly, oh, wow, man, I wish we had used Phillips for more than 6 pitches tonight. So you can second guess anything, but they got the win when it was in front of them. So we'll come back in a minute, and we'll talk about the offense, which was another bright spot of the weekend. And we got the Dodgers the second win of the series. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, anytime that have you ever had a situation where you just try to make a decision and you just can't make the decision? It's not like you want somebody to make the decision for you. You just need somebody to talk to about it. That's the thing. When it comes to therapy, a lot of people think that therapy is only for serious trauma or, serious issues. And therapy is great for those things, but sometimes it's just, you just have tough choices and the path forward isn't clear. And whether it's decisions about your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate your life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement, trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values. It's like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. And if you are considering therapy, I would strongly recommend BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a great option because it is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's flexible. It's suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonmlb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonmlb. We are back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. I want to remind you again, you can catch every Dodger game, the hometown Dodgers broadcast, on the radio on SiriusXM or the SXM app, simply by searching for the SXM app for Dodgers. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Vince, the other element of this series was the Dodgers offense. The Dodgers scored 8 runs in the first, 10 runs in the first game of the series, including, I think 9 of them came in the last 3 innings. Scored 1 run in the 7th, 8 in the 5th, and then 3 more 8 in the 8th, 5 in the 8th. Wow. I said 8 in the 5th, 5 in the 8th. I'm pretty good at this talking thing. Glad I do a podcast. 5 in the 8th and 3 more in the 9th. Then on Saturday, they did well. Not great. They only scored 3 runs, but against Blake Snell has been one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. And the Dodgers had a 3-1 lead on Snell. And it was until that bullpen implosion. And then on Sunday, the offense stepped back up again and scored a bunch of runs. I don't even remember what the final score was on Sunday. Do you remember, Vince? 8. Yeah. And so, that's 18 through 21 runs in 3 games. And when 2 of the games were started by Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, obviously the Dodgers feasted on the bullpen a little bit in the one game. But all in all, about what we've come to expect from the Dodgers, and definitely what the reason that the Dodgers have had a pretty dominant stretch, despite the fact that their pitching has sometimes been a little lackluster.
Yeah, they picked up Kike and Ahmed Rosario at the perfect time because they faced a lot of lefties recently. And, Rosario had a big homer on Sunday, and he had a few clutch hits over the weekend. Kike had a couple hits, nothing that stands out, but, that's better than they were before against left-handed pitching. So that's helped. Freddie Freeman's been on an absolute tear. And it was funny because on Friday night when they scored all the runs, Freddie didn't have a hit. He had an RBI hit on Saturday, had the big home run on Sunday to kind of get ahead. And I think, what you want to see from this offense is them being competitive against good pitching and them, damaging bad pitching. And that's what they did against the A's for the most part. Took a 1 or 2 times through a lineup or whatever, but they ended up getting to all those guys that weren't very good pitching. They ended up getting to Rich Hill pretty early in the game Sunday. And, he's, Rich Hill's fun, but he's not as great as he once was. And, for all of us that kind of mentioned him as a possibility, it could have been what they ended up with at the deadline. And as we saw, it might not have worked out. So, but yeah, against Snell, they got the runs. They got him out after 5 innings. That's what you wanted, especially at night after the Padres had to use some of their main bullpen guys and some of their good bullpen guys. And again, Saturday is the one where it's like it all kind of worked out. Blake Snell left the game. The Dodgers were up. It just didn't work out the way the rest of the game. But yeah, the offense has been fun to watch, and hopefully that continues on.
Yeah, and all in all, it was a very productive weekend for the Dodgers as far as the standings go. The Giants didn't play on Friday for some reason, which is weird. Started their 2-game series with the A's on Saturday and got swept in that 2-game series by the A's. So Dodgers picked up a 1.5 games since the last time we talked on the Giants. They're now 4 games up on the Giants. They are 5 games up in the loss column. And then on the D-backs, the D-backs have now lost 6 in a row. Dodgers are 8.5 up on the D-backs. I think we can basically rule the D-backs out of the division competition. Hopefully the Dodgers can step on their necks on Tuesday and Wednesday when they play a 2-game series against them and really put them away. But all in all, the Padres are only 1.5 games behind the D-backs now, despite losing 2 out of 3 so far to the Dodgers. So, but it would be fun as far as the Padres go, the wild card standings, what they're worried about, they are right now 4 spots out of the last. They need to leapfrog over 4 teams to get into that last wild card spot, and they are 3 games out of that last spot right now. Be nice for the Dodgers to win again today and hurt the Padres' chances there. It's already an uphill battle because even though only 3 games back, but you got to get past 4 teams. And so when one team wins or one team loses, but another team wins, it's hard to jump over that many teams. But they're not out of it yet. But another Dodgers win today could definitely help with that.
Yeah, taking 3 out of 4 would be pretty demoralizing for the Padres. Obviously, there's still a lot of time after that, but it's fun to put teams down when you can take advantage of it.
Yep. That's going to do it for us today. It's been a fun weekend so far. Hopefully the Dodgers can finish off that fun weekend in today's series finale. It's a day game. Remember, you can catch that if you're at work or whatever. Great time to launch your SXM app and listen to the Dodgers radio broadcast on SXM just by searching for Dodgers. Thank you, everydayers, for being with us. We appreciate that. If you're not an everydayer, just start watching or listening every day. You can join that club. Love to hear from you through all of the different ways, the YouTube comment section, or you can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snidog. The DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com. And our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.